The grand ballroom of the Mar-a-Lago resort shimmered under crystal chandeliers, the air thick with the scent of wealth and ambition. It was a star-studded fundraising gala, the kind where politicians, celebrities, and influencers collided in a dazzling display of power. Donald Trump, the evening's host, stood at the center of the room, his trademark red tie gleaming as he worked the crowd with his signature bravado. Across the room, Denzel Washington, the Oscar-winning actor, leaned against a marble pillar, his presence commanding yet understated. Dressed in a tailored black tuxedo, Denzel's piercing gaze scanned the room, his quiet confidence a stark contrast to the frenetic energy around him. The event was a charity auction for veterans, a cause both men publicly supported, though their paths rarely crossed. Denzel, known for his philanthropy and no-nonsense demeanor, had been invited as a guest speaker to lend star power to the evening. Trump, ever the showman, had ensured the night was a spectacle, with gold-plated name cards and a live orchestra. But beneath the glitz, tension simmered. Whispers circulated that Trump had taken issue with Denzel's recent comments in an interview, where the actor had critiqued political divisiveness without naming names. To some, it felt like a subtle jab at the former president. As Denzel stepped to the podium to deliver his speech, the room hushed. His voice, deep and resonant, carried the weight of his words as he spoke about unity, sacrifice, and the need for authentic leadership. The crowd erupted in applause except for Trump, who stood near the back, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. A few of his aides exchanged glances, sensing his displeasure. Denzel's speech, though broadly inspiring, seemed to strike a nerve, its call for accountability hitting too close to home. As Denzel returned to his table, a murmur rippled through the crowd. Trump leaned toward his head of security, a burly man in a black suit, and whispered something, his face taut. The security chief nodded and began weaving through the tables toward Denzel. The actor, sipping a glass of water, noticed the approach, but remained unfazed, his eyes narrowing slightly. The room's energy shifted as guests sensed something was amiss. "Mr. Washington," the security chief said, his tone clipped but professional, "I've been asked to escort you out." Gasps erupted from nearby tables. Denzel set down his glass, his movements deliberate, and locked eyes with the man. "On whose orders?" he asked, his voice calm but edged with steel. The security chief hesitated, glancing back toward Trump, who was now watching intently from across the room. "Mr. Trump's," he replied. The room fell silent, all eyes on Denzel. He stood slowly, his towering presence drawing every gaze. Instead of arguing, he adjusted his cufflinks and gave a small, knowing smile. "Let's take a walk," he sighed, gesturing for the security chief to lead the way. The crowd parted as Denzel strode toward the exit, his head high, exuding a quiet dignity that made the moment feel cinematic. Whispers followed him, some of outrage, others of confusion. Trump, meanwhile, turned back to his conversation, dismissing the scene with a wave of his hand, but Denzel wasn't done. As he reached the grand double doors, he paused and turned back, his eyes finding Trump across the room. The actor's gaze held a spark of defiance that suggested this wasn't the end. The doors closed behind him, and the gala resumed, but the air was charged with anticipation. Outside, under the starlit Florida sky, Denzel pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "It's time," he said simply, his voice low and resolute. Whatever he was planning, it was clear this moment was only the beginning of a much larger story, one that would shake the foundations of power and pride. Denzel stood outside Mar-a-Lago, the ocean breeze tugging at his tuxedo. The security chief, visibly uncomfortable, lingered nearby, unsure whether to stay or return inside. Denzel's call connected, and a familiar voice answered, a trusted friend and filmmaker, Ava DuVernay. "They did what?" Ava's voice crackled with disbelief as Denzel recounted the incident. He kept his tone steady, but the fire in his words was unmistakable. "It's not about me," he said. "It's about what this represents. We're doing this now." Ava, known for her bold storytelling, didn't hesitate. "I'm in. Let's make it count." The plan was ambitious, a documentary exposing the undercurrents of power and ego in elite circles. using the gala incident as a catalyst. Denzel had been quietly gathering stories from others who'd faced similar slights: artists, activists, and everyday people silenced for speaking truth. The Mar-a-Lago moment was the spark he needed to bring it all to light. Back inside, Trump mingled, unaware of the storm brewing. He'd dismissed Denzel's exit as a minor inconvenience, confident his influence would overshadow any backlash. But social media was already buzzing. Guests had recorded the incident, and clips of Denzel's dignified exit were going viral. Hashtags like #DenzelWalks and #TruthSilence trended, amplifying the moment beyond the ballroom. Trump's team scrambled to control the narrative, but the tide was turning. Denzel drove to a nearby hotel, where Ava had already assembled a small team of filmmakers, writers, and researchers. They worked through the night, mapping out the documentary's structure. Denzel wasn't just a figurehead. He was hands-on, sketching scenes and suggesting interviews with whistleblowers and community leaders. His vision was clear, a film that didn't just call out one man but exposed a system that punished authenticity. By dawn, the team had a rough outline. Denzel, though exhausted, felt energized. He knew the risks alienating powerful figures, facing legal threats, but he'd never back down from a fight. As he stepped outside for air, a young fan approached, having seen the viral clip. "Mr. Washington, you're a legend for standing tall," the kid said. Denzel smiled, his resolve hardening. This wasn't just his fight, it was for everyone. Watching the next morning, headlines exploded. "Trump boots Denzel from gala?" screamed tabloids, while ex-posts dissected every angle. Some praised Denzel's grace. Others, loyal to Trump, called it a publicity stunt. Trump took to X himself, posting, "Denzel Washington disrespected a great event. Sad, security did their job?" Next, his supporters rallied, but the broader public wasn't buying it. The viral video had painted a stark picture. Denzel's calm defiance versus Trump's impulsive power play. Denzel's team worked tirelessly, securing funding from independent backers who believed in the project. Ava brought in a cinematographer known for gritty exposes, and they began filming Denzel's reflections on the incident. "It's not about one night," he said on camera, his voice steady. "It's about who gets to speak and who gets silenced." The footage was raw, powerful, and set to anchor the documentary. Meanwhile, Trump's team doubled down. They leaked stories to friendly outlets, painting Denzel as disruptive and ungrateful. A few pundits took the bait, but the narrative faltered as more gala attendees spoke out. A waiter, risking his job, posted on X about overhearing Trump's irritation at Denzel's speech. He said it was too preachy, the waiter wrote. The post went viral, adding fuel to the fire. Denzel, unfazed, met with a group of young activists in Miami. They shared stories of being marginalized for speaking out, their voices shaking with passion. Denzel listened intently, his presence grounding them. "Your stories are the heart of this," he told them. "We're giving you the mic." The activists agreed to be filmed, their courage inspiring the team. As Denzel left the meeting, he checked his phone, hundreds of messages from supporters worldwide. The movement was growing, and he was ready to lead it. In a small Miami studio, Denzel and Ava reviewed early footage. The clips were electric: Denzel's gala exit, the activists' testimonies, and archival footage of similar power plays in politics and entertainment. Ava suggested a title, "Silenced Voices." Denzel nodded, liking its weight. They brought in a composer to craft a score that matched the film's intensity, blending orchestral swells with hip-hop beats to reflect the diverse voices they were amplifying. Trump, sensing the growing storm, called a press conference. Flanked by aides, he dismissed the controversy. "Denzel's making a big deal out of nothing," he said, smirking. "He's an actor, not a hero." The crowd laughed, but the press wasn't so easily swayed. Questions about free speech and power dynamics dominated, frustrating Trump. His team began digging into Denzel's past, hoping to find dirt to discredit him. Denzel's team anticipated this. They hired a cybersecurity expert to protect their footage and communications. Denzel himself stayed focused, meeting with a former White House staffer who'd witnessed similar attempts to silence critics. Her story recorded in a dimly lit caf was a bombshell, detailing how dissent was stifled in elite circles. "This goes way beyond one gala," she said, her voice trembling. Denzel's calm encouragement kept her talking, her words a cornerstone for the film. Back at the studio, tensions rose. A team member discovered their email had been hacked, likely by someone tied to Trump's circle. Denzel called a meeting, his voice steady but firm. "They're scared," he said. "That means we're on the right track." The team rallied, working late to secure their work. As Denzel left, he saw a mural of himself on a nearby wall, painted overnight by local artists. The caption read, "Speak truth." He smiled, knowing the fight was just beginning. Trump's team escalated their efforts. A smear campaign hit social media, with anonymous accounts spreading rumors about Denzel's motives. One claimed he was paid to disrupt the gala. Another hinted at financial troubles. The attacks were sloppy but relentless, designed to muddy his reputation. Denzel, advised by Ava, stayed silent publicly, letting the documentary speak for itself. "We don't fight noise with noise," he told the team. "We fight it with truth." The studio became a fortress of creativity. Denzel recorded voiceovers, his gravitas lending weight to the activists' stories. One segment featured a young poet who'd been blacklisted for criticizing local officials. Her words, paired with Denzel's narration, were chilling. The team also uncovered footage of Trump dismissing other critics at events, creating a pattern. "This isn't about me," Denzel said on camera. "It's about a system that punishes honesty." Public support grew. Celebrities like Viola Davis and John Legend tweeted support for Denzel, using hashtag silenced voices to amplify the message. A grassroots campaign organized screenings for the documentary's teaser, drawing crowds in cities nationwide. Trump's team, rattled, hired a PR firm to spin the narrative, but their efforts felt hollow against the raw authenticity of Denzel's project. Late one night, Denzel received a call from an old friend in politics, warning him of a potential lawsuit to block the documentary. "They're coming for you," the friend said. Denzel thanked him and hung up, unfazed. He looked at the team, editing furiously under dim lights. "We keep going," he said. "No one stops the truth." As he stepped outside, a crowd of supporters had gathered, holding signs that read, "Denzel speaks for us." The movement was unstoppable. The lawsuit arrived like a thunderclap. Trump's legal team filed a defamation claim, alleging Denzel's documentary misrepresented the gala incident to damage Trump's reputation. The news dominated headlines, with pundits debating the merits of the case. Denzel's team hired a top lawyer, a fierce advocate for free speech, who saw the suit as a bullying tactic. "They want to scare us," she told Denzel, "but we're ready." In the studio, the team doubled down. They added a segment to the documentary, addressing the lawsuit directly. Denzel recorded a powerful monologue, looking straight into the camera. "This isn't about one man's ego," he said. "It's about a system that tries to silence us when we speak up." The footage was raw, unscripted, and electrifying, capturing Denzel's resolve in a way that resonated deeply. Public reaction was fierce. Protests erupted outside Trump's properties, with crowds chanting, "Let Denzel speak." X was flooded with memes juxtaposing Denzel's calm exit with Trump's fiery tweets. The lawsuit, meant to intimidate, backfired, drawing more attention to the documentary. Ava secured a distribution deal with a major streaming platform, ensuring silenced voices would reach millions. Denzel met with his lawyer in a quiet diner, discussing strategy. She warned that the case could drag on, draining resources. Denzel listened, then leaned forward. "They can't outlast the truth," he said. "We've got the people on our side." As he left, a group of fans recognized him, offering words of encouragement. Denzel thanked them, his heart full. The fight was bigger than him now. It was a movement. With the documentary's release date set, excitement built. The team finalized edits, weaving together stories of resilience with Denzel's gala incident as the narrative spine. The trailer dropped online, racking up millions of views in hours. It featured Denzel's voiceover. They tried to silence me, but they forgot. One thing, I'm not alone. The internet erupted, with hashtag silenced voices trending globally. Trump's team, desperate, intensified their attacks. They released a slick ad campaign, painting Trump as a victim of Hollywood elites. But the public wasn't swayed. Denzel's authenticity shone through, his decades-long reputation as a man of integrity carrying more weight than polished PR. At a press conference, a reporter asked Trump about the documentary. He deflected, calling it fake news, but his unease was palpable. Denzel traveled to New York for a pre-release screening, meeting with activists and community leaders. Their stories, now central to the film, moved him deeply. A young woman, a whistleblower fired for exposing corruption, thanked Denzel for giving her a voice. "You're the voice," he told her, his eyes warm. The screening drew a standing ovation, with attendees buzzing about the film's impact. Back in Miami, Ava received a tip. Trump's team was planning to disrupt the premiere. Denzel gathered the team, his voice steady. "They can try," he said, "but this story's bigger than their games." As he looked out at the city skyline, he felt the weight of the moment. The premiere was days away and the world was watching. The premiere was held in a historic Los Angeles theater, packed with supporters, celebrities, and press. Security was tight, anticipating disruptions. Denzel arrived in a simple black suit, his presence electric. The crowd roared as he took the stage, introducing silenced voices with a short speech. "This is for everyone who's been told to sit down and shut up," he said. The applause was deafening. The film played to a rapt audience. Denzel's gala exit was the opening scene, followed by stories of ordinary people fighting against power. The crowd laughed, cried, and cheered, moved by the film's raw honesty. When the credits rolled, the standing ovation lasted minutes. Denzel, Ava, and the team took the stage, visibly moved by the response. Outside, a small group of protesters, likely hired by Trump's team, tried to disrupt the event, chanting slogans. But they were drowned out by supporters, who formed a human chain around the theater, singing songs of unity. The moment was captured on X, going viral instantly. Denzel stepped outside to thank the crowd, his voice booming. "This is what truth looks like," he said, sparking cheers. Trump, watching the coverage from Mar-a-Lago, fumed. His team reported dwindling support for their narrative. The documentary was a cultural moment, shifting the conversation. Denzel, back inside, received a call from a major studio executive offering to fund a follow-up project. He smiled but didn't commit. "This was never about me," he told Ava later. "It's about them." The night ended with the team celebrating, knowing they'd struck a chord. Silenced Voices debuted on the streaming platform to record-breaking views. Critics hailed it as a masterpiece, praising Denzel's courage and Ava's direction. The lawsuit against Denzel was quietly dropped, the legal team citing insufficient grounds. Trump's public response was muted, a rare retreat. On X, he posted a vague comment about moving on, but the damage was done. His attempt to silence Denzel had only amplified the actor's voice. Denzel traveled the country, hosting Q&A sessions at screenings. Each event drew diverse crowds, from students to retirees, all inspired by the film's message. One young man, a budding filmmaker, told Denzel, "You showed me I can tell my story." Denzel clasped his shoulder, nodding. "That's why we did this," he said. The encounters fueled him, reinforcing the project's impact. The documentary sparked policy discussions, with lawmakers citing it in debates about free speech protections. Grassroots movements grew, demanding accountability from leaders. Denzel, though exhausted, felt a sense of purpose. He and Ava began planning a sequel, focusing on global stories of silenced voices. "We're just getting started," Ava said, her eyes gleaming. Denzel agreed, ready for the next fight. Back at Mar-a-Lago, Trump hosted another gala, but the energy was different. Attendance was down, and the room lacked its usual spark. Guests whispered about Denzel's victory, and even Trump's loyalists seemed subdued. The former president, sensing the shift, retreated to his office early. The world had changed, and he knew it. Months later, Denzel stood on a community center stage in Chicago, speaking to a group of young activists. Silence Voices had won awards, but its true impact was in the lives it touched. The activists shared how the film inspired them to organize, speak out, and fight for change. Denzel listened, his heart full, knowing the movement would outlive him. The film's success had ripple effects. New laws protecting whistleblowers gained traction, and several figures exposed in the documentary faced investigations. Denzel, now a symbol of resistance, remained humble. "I'm just a guy who wouldn't leave quietly," he said in an interview, smiling. The gala incident, once a moment of humiliation, had become a turning point for justice. Trump, meanwhile, faded from the spotlight, his influence waning as public attention shifted to new leaders. The Mar-a-Lago moment was a footnote in his story, but a defining chapter in Denzel's. The actor returned to his craft, filming a new movie, but he never stopped supporting the movement he'd sparked. At a final screening, he took the stage, his voice steady. "They tried to silence us," he said, "but we spoke louder." As the crowd roared, Denzel looked out, seeing faces of hope and defiance. The camera panned across the audience, capturing a movement that wouldn't be stopped. The screen faded to black with text, "The truth always finds a way." The legacy of that night at Mar-a-Lago lived on, a testament to one man's refusal to bow and the world that rose to stand with him.